ton of fun, but I was incredibly sore the next day.
I'd rather be a professional curler than a professional cornhole player. Sweet, you can throw a beanbag through a hole. Congrats.
And curling, you get to travel too. Like
Yeah.
you get to go to like Japan and through Europe and.
I got my stay gold.
Yeah.
I got my stay golden.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever and wherever you're watching or listening. This is the Awesemo NHL DFS Strategy Show, and I'm your host, Michael Clifford, aka Slim Cliffy. Joining me for the next hour to talk about who would win in a fight between the Mandalorian and Boba Fett, our single entry assassin, Mr. Joshua Harris. Josh, how you doing today, buddy?
I don't think an hour would cover that. I don't know. I haven't seen Boba Fett yet, the show. I have seen The Mandalorian. I love it. Big Star Wars guy, big Star Trek guy. Also, big Betty White fan. Shout out Betty White, rest in peace. But yeah, maybe I'll start watching that today before the old nurse gets home.
Yeah, and they're short episodes. They're only like 30 to 40 minutes. Not a lot to get through. Yeah, shout out Betty White, R.I.P. I did watch Golden Girls a fair bit when I was younger. It's a really good documentary about her on Netflix. I know we're here to talk about hockey, but there's a great documentary about her on Netflix. Came out a few years ago while she was still alive. She talked about a lot about, breaking through in the 40s, in 50s in Hollywood and what that was like. And it was just really, really interesting. So yeah, shout out the GOAT to Betty White, and shout out to a couple winners that we had here last night. Always nice to get some screenshots, whether it's through the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Sometimes we just get them in DMs, what have you. Soul Cube 123 took down the 444 on FanDuel last night for $5,000. Had Vancouver and the Rangers. Vancouver, JT Miller scored a hat trick in the first 30 minutes of that game or something like that. Just an awesome night for him. I also got from a couple nights ago, we see him in chat from time to time. Sammy Telesco, Buffalo War Pigs, on DK had a $500 bink as well a couple nights ago. I see a super chat from the man himself, Soul Cube, $100 super chat. Thank you very much for that. That is very generous of you. Very much appreciated. He says, thanks for everything, guys. Took down the 444 last night because of you guys. Keep it up. Like, I think it's we should point out here that I was strictly against the Rangers here last night while you were on them. So I think we'll say, Josh, you can take your kudos for this one. I'm not going to take any responsibility for this because I didn't play any Rangers, and it certainly showed in my winnings at the end of the night. But congrats to Soul Cube, got there with the Rangers, got there with the Vancouver Canucks. Let's hope we can get there again tonight. Only 5 games tonight, so let's talk about that last night's slate a little bit. It was a weird slate because you didn't have any massive games, right? Like no one scored more than 5 goals in a game. And, you had the JT Miller hat trick. Brandon Saad had a 3-point night for the St. Louis Blues. But JT Miller on the road, not highly owned. Brandon Saad on the third line, not highly owned. There wasn't a lot of highly owned rostered significant fantasy performances last night, and that really messed with ownership. So I don't know, is there a lot you can glean from a night like last night other than sometimes no stacks really come through? There are only maybe a couple on a huge slate like that.
We have those nights from time to time. The cash style lineup wins. Like there was a lot of broken Ducks lineups because they missed the line news, and there was a lot of Getzlaf with Zegras, but Getzlaf had 0. Ryan Strome had 0. Like I think Soul Cube won 5,000 with Strome with the 0. Yeah. So like they're like Pittsburgh 1 did nothing. Winnipeg 2 didn't do too much. Edmonton didn't really do anything. Well, I mean, like I know Bouchard scored, but he even wasn't that popular. Crosby only, or not Crosby, McDavid only had 1 goal. Draisaitl wasn't on the score sheet. So like Vegas won. Pacioretty was back there, only 3%. They didn't do anything. If they scored 3 goals, like Like if one of those lines went off, the lineups, the money would have been so much flipped on its head. But like, so you just take these nights and you're just like, well, I had a 3% elite line that didn't do anything, but that's what I want. You're just not happy with the results, so it is what it is. Like, I hate the phrase process over results because it sounds like a tout making excuses, like, oh, it was just they didn't, it was
it was variance. Variance got us last
variance. It was, variance. Well, yeah. But like, I guess it wasn't variance. It's just like you got the lines that you wanted at the ownership you want. You just didn't get the results.
Yeah, I mean, everything is variance. That's the whole point of this game, right? So saying, you ran bad because of variance is just saying, you ran bad because what you wanted to happen didn't happen. That's just the name of the game. But I think that 0 from Ryan Strome kind of illustrates a point we were making on the show a couple of days ago. When you're stacking lines, you obviously want every player to have a huge score. That's one of the reasons why you stack lines. But another reason is if a line ends up optimal, like the Rangers second line last night ended up in the winning lineup for the 444 over on FanDuel with that 0 from Ryan Strome. The reason that worked out is because the line mates did so well. And that's kind of the point of stacking, is that even if one guy doesn't do anything, if that line ends up optimal, he could end up in the optimal lineup still. That's one of the reasons why we stack. And I think that Ryan Strome bagel really illustrates that point. I know it's a sample size of 1, but it kind of illustrates the point in a real world result that kind of shows what we mean here. Now, looking ahead, actually, I just want to cover one more thing, and that's Seattle. Seattle went into Pittsburgh last night, and before lineup lock, maybe about 90 minutes before, you and I were talking about that game. You and I, a few other people, were talking about that game, and I wasn't super high on Pittsburgh 1. Now, I still played them, just not as much as I otherwise should have, and the reason for that is because I believe in regression. And the Seattle goaltending in the first, 2.5 months of the season was just so atrociously bad. I find it hard to believe that they're going to persist with like an 880 save percentage or whatever it was for the rest of the season. So it's not that Seattle will necessarily be a much better team in the second half, but I think just through natural regression through the goaltending, they may not be the punching bag they've been for the last couple months. I don't know. Do you have any thought on how to handle goaltending and goalies that have bad starts? And, do you pay attention to streaks through the season? Like, what do you think of that?
It's kind of hard to pay attention to goalies having bad seasons unless they're like known to be really bad. I mean, like Grubauer has what's the phrase? Like, look at the back of the baseball card. He'll end up around that save percentage every year. It wasn't like that year in Pittsburgh where they had that goal. I forgot who it was. He just got lit up night after night after night. You just had to stack against because he wasn't an NHL goalie. But I think more importantly for Seattle was they actually looked good defensively for the first time.
They did only allow 24 shots against the Penguins on the road. That's pretty substantial.
Yeah, so like I think it goes hand in hand because Grubauer got lit up in the beginning of the season, but you look at the defensive numbers of their lines, they were terrible. So like with one maybe comes the other, or vice versa, chicken egg argument. But like, maybe they're coming into a little bit of a run here. They're not going to be world beaters by any means, but they shouldn't get the doors blown off every night like they were for a stretch.
And I think that's just kind of the point I want to make here is like, for a long time, we were treating them as if like they're the Buffalo Sabres or the Ottawa Senators or something like that. What if they're closer, in the second half of the season, what if they're closer to like the Minnesota Wild of a couple years ago where, pretty good defensively, but just can't score? I think that's something that we could be trending towards with the Seattle Kraken, something to monitor, because again, if they're not a punching bag, that really changes how we look at this team pretty much whenever they're on the slate. Before we get too much further, just want to give a special shout out to Yahoo Fantasy. They are our sponsor, have been the entire season. They've been very good to us. So if you want to get your feet wet in DFS, but you don't want to play against some sharks and maybe you want some free money while you do it, we have a special giveaway through Yahoo we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. I also see about 75 people in the chat. If you guys could please throw us a thumbs up. Those likes really do help us get to the top of the algorithm, help us look good for our bosses. And click that subscribe button as we continue the road to 420,000 subscribers. Click the bell if you want to get alerts when we do go live. And we have shows almost every day now. I mean, 3 major sports running, and plus I think NASCAR boots up here in about a month. Obviously PGA just kicked off. There's MMA seems like is every other weekend. There's lots of stuff going on at Awesemo.com. So make sure you click that bell to get alerts. And as for free premium tools and data up on the site, we have them almost every day, today being no exception. We have our NBA player rankings and our NHL top stacks tool. So if you hear us talk about top 2 ownership percentage or line ownership or anything along those lines, that comes from our top stacks tool. And that is free up on Awesemo.com. So go check it out and check out our NBA player rankings if you're playing a little basketball here tonight. All right, let's jump into these games, Josh. We have the Detroit Red Wings with a 2.6 implied goal total. They're going into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 3.9 implied goal total. We talked at length in the last game about Detroit's problem with Tyler Bertuzzi, and namely that he seems to carry whichever line that he plays on, and it's really hurt the Detroit top line's numbers now that he's moved down to the second line. The thing is that the Penguins are starting Casey DeSmith tonight, or they probably should be, seeing as Jarry started last night. And Casey DeSmith, I think, is like not a very good goalie. I think he's a bad goalie. I think there's a good reason why a mediocre Tristan Jarry has held on to this role all season long. I think there's probably stuff to play on both sides here. Josh, what do you like?
Yeah. The thing that worries me about that Detroit second line is how Pittsburgh kind of matched up yesterday with Seattle. Granted, there isn't like a, this is the Seattle top line. Like, it's kind of hard to differentiate a little bit here, but they were sending out Evan Rodriguez, Jeff Carter, Brock McGinn a fair bit against McCann Eberle. So if that is the case, like, they may go out against Larkin tonight, which would probably put Crosby a fair bit up against Bertuzzi Suter, which is a bit worrisome for me for that line, for the Suter line. Now what I'm hoping happens is, Detroit scores a goal quick, and then, like, we'll just send Crosby out against whoever we want, which would free up, Suter against like Malkin, which, they're okay. But like, I don't want to go into the teeth of the Crosby matchup. Not that like that line will see Suter 100% of the time. Like, they'll see it sometimes. They'll see, Rasmussen sometimes. Like, they're not guaranteed to be like every time they step on the ice, they're going to see Sidney Crosby. But it does worry me that they are going to see them a little bit. That being said, like, I think if I was going to go back to the line, is probably the Bertuzzi Fabry 2-man. If you want to go to Larkin Raymond, like, that's fine. Like, the price is coming down, but like, Nemestikov is not Tyler Bertuzzi. Dylan Larkin without Bertuzzi, you've mentioned the numbers. It's pretty stark. So I think, for the Red Wings, it's going to be Bertuzzi Fabry. It is Casey DeSmith. So if you want to add in Larkin, it is kind of expensive to do that though. Like, Fabry one-off, I think is, if I'm going to do anything with the Wings, it's probably going to be a Fabry one-off. He's 3K, power play 1. Casey DeSmith is, he can't even overtake Tristan Jarry. According to, the Penguin beats our all-star Tristan Jarry. They had to take somebody, right? So like, but on the Penguin side, I like going back to Pittsburgh 1 here. They burned a lot of people yesterday. They're about 12%. Coming in around the same ownership today. They're cheaper. Probably a little bit better matchup. It's just, there's questions of what you want to do, like, because Colorado's on the slate without McKinnon. There's Chicago, although their prices are broken. There's the Rangers, there's the Wings, or the Wild. Then you got, the Stars and the Capitals and the Bruins against the Coyotes. So like, again, like, the Penguins are the most expensive line in the night again. So you're going to have to make a choice what you want to do. But like, there's some pretty broken pricing on DraftKings. On FanDuel, like, the pricing is very, very tough. So I'd be more, this seems like Penguins 1 seems more like a DK MME type of deal, but I will consider them in 1 to 3.
Yeah, I will start on the Detroit side here. And the one concern I do have, I mean, there are, considering the Pittsburgh Penguins are one of the best teams in hockey, Detroit is not. But the matchup concern is one that I share with you. I do like the Suter-Bertuzzi Fabry line. Been 57% shot share, about 56% score of the scoring chance share, generating 36 scoring chances per 60 minutes. Like, they've been pretty good together. The top line, as you mentioned, worse without Bertuzzi, 45% shot share. Numbers go down by scoring chances. So, like, they're pretty bad. Now, if that matching sticks, like, Pittsburgh 1 obviously has the matchup advantage over Detroit 2, and that's the thing that kind of hurts here. And Pittsburgh doesn't take a lot of penalties. So, like, Fabry and Bertuzzi can get there on the power play, because Pittsburgh's penalty kill, honestly, it's not great. Like, it's fine, but it's not great. It's barely, not even average. So I think that I would still go to Detroit too, for this reason, is that I think it's their best line that they have right now. Larkin, I think I wouldn't stack the Detroit top line. If I use Larkin, I think it's as a one-off, because he's still shooting a fair bit. It's just that nobody else on his line is. So I would probably use Larkin as a one-off. Maybe you want to slide him in a Detroit power play stack or something. I think that's a little bit too much, but that's kind of how I would use him. So off of Detroit 1 onto Detroit 2. On the Pittsburgh side, I don't know how you get away from them here. I know we have 12% ownership. I imagine that probably comes up somewhere around 15%, maybe a little bit higher, considering it's a 5-game slate. But there are only so many lines that you can fit in with them. And I think that for that reason that comes up. But even at like 15 to 20%, I still want to play this line in this matchup. So Pittsburgh 1 still in for me. The question is what to do with Pittsburgh 3, because I think that makes a good filler line. But Erod, Evan Rodriguez, and Jeff Carter haven't been very good together this year. And I don't know exactly what it is. If you look at it's a somewhat limited sample, but 44% of the shots when they're on the ice, that's not good at all. So I'm wondering what's going on there and whether it's actually worth using them as some sort of filler. I think I would rather just one off a McGinn, one off an Erod, something like that, rather than full stack the Pittsburgh 3 line. So where I'm at in this game, Pittsburgh 1, absolutely love them. Mix in Malkin instead of Crosby if you want to save a bit of money, or just throw in Malkin for some additional power play exposure, what have you. Pittsburgh 1, Pittsburgh power play, Detroit 2 for me in this game. On the blue line, I think I'm going to be trying to get in some Chris Letang on the blue line for Pittsburgh here. We've been saying often enough that the Detroit defensemen aren't really bringing a lot to the table. I noticed Danny DeKeyser. He seems like he could be a threat for the shot block bonus here tonight. I believe he's been playing a few more minutes. He's on the top pair with Moritz Seider, 2,600. I think that's fine for a near punt. What do you think?
Yeah. Don't mind him. Chronic 3K is fine. Pittsburgh side, it's really just Letang or move on for me from the Penguin side.
Yeah, I agree with that. Soul Cube drops another $5 super chat into the YouTube for us. Thanks a lot, Soul Cube. Says, what's with all the love for Chicago on the fantasy hockey cheat sheet? Well, neither of us do the cheat sheets. I'm going to guess a lot of it has to do with the value that Chicago is presenting today. Seth Jones down to 5,700. He's a defenseman we've seen in the 7K range. Connor Murphy at 3,300. We've seen him in the 4K range. Alex DeBrincat is $4,600 today, and he's on pace for 50 goals this season. It's not that Chicago's in a fantastic spot. It's not that Chicago's a great team. It's that they're priced down so much that the value is there in a home matchup on a 5-game slate. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, it's interesting because did we get clarity on the Blackhawks lines with Tays out or no? I didn't see anything. So I don't know the lines. I'm not really sure the matchups, but like this is definitely price driven. Like Dylan Strome coming off a 4-point game under 3K, Patrick Kane 6K, Hagel 2,900. Like that line is under 12K to full stack. Like
that's
okay, DraftKings like putting too much equity into like the Hawks being massive underdogs. Like they might need to tinker that a little bit, like not make them a free square.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that they are very, very cheap, very reasonable, even on a 5-game slate like this. All right, let's move this along. Let's get to our next game. Minnesota 3.0 implied goal total. They're going into New York to face the Rangers. Rangers have a 3.1 total. New York likely starting Igor Shesterkin tonight, as Alexander Georgiev started last night. Cam Talbot in for the Minnesota Wild. Adam Fox got hurt last night. Doesn't look like he's playing tonight. Jacob Trouba took over the top power play unit, but that Schneider kid jumped up onto the top power play for a few seconds, got some secondary power play time. Maybe there's something in the works there, but Trouba's cheap enough and he should play enough minutes where it's just fine to play him. I think there's a lot to play up and down the lineups on both sides. You're the Rangers whisperer on this show, Josh. What do you like out of this game?
So the reason this game's at 8:00 is because Henrik Lundqvist is getting his jersey raised to the rafters. There are some big old houses on Narrative Street tonight for the Rangers and for the Wild, because Cam Talbot was Hank's backup for a few seasons. Matt Zuccarello, Hank's little hobbit, is back at the Garden for this. You got, what else? That's about it, really. But I don't know. I said earlier this game's going to be 0-0 going into a shootout because, but it is a 6 over under, and there is some stuff to like the Rangers pricing is still really, really cheap. And we talk about how bad the Wild penalty kill is, and that is true. But in the past, 4 or 5 weeks, they haven't been taking too many penalties. And that's a problem because the Rangers can't score unless they're on the power play. So what do you do here? So you kind of hope this game gets a little chippy and the Rangers get some power plays. Kreider under 6K still is bananas. Panarin under 6K still bananas. If you want to go to the Rangers power, I don't think I'm going to full stack anything here, for the Rangers. It's just, I just can't do it. Julian Gauthier, go away. Barclay Goodrow, worst contract in the history of the Rangers, which says a lot because Mark Stahl was just on the team. I don't want to full stack these lines, so I think I would do a combination. I do Kreider, Zibanejad, Panarin, or Zibanejad, Panarin, Strome, and Trouba's a really, really good play tonight, regardless of the Rangers sucking 5-on-5, because he's 4,800. He's gonna see a minutes boost with Fox out. He's a peripherals guy anyway, so I think honestly my favorite play on the Rangers is Trouba tonight. So, but on the skater side, I think I'll just power play stack and just hope the Wild take 3-4 penalties. On the Wild side, I think there is a lot to like here. The problem is they're facing Igor, and there's just goalies I just don't stack against, Igor being one of them, UC Saros being another. It feels bad, but I think you still have to do it tonight, especially with these ownership percentages. Minnesota won coming in at 4%. They got ridiculous numbers together. The Rangers defensively aren't great. Fox being out is a huge, huge downgrade. Go look at the Rangers numbers with and without him on the ice. It's pretty scary. Igor may just go absolutely bonkers, but I think at these ownership percentages, you have to take some shots here. You want to get some Joe Eriksson Ek, I think that's fine. You look at Fiala Boldy, 7,300 for the two of them going against Lafreniere, Rooney, Dryden, Hunt. They should run over that line. It's just a matter if they can score on Igor. And as we talked about goalies earlier, as good as Igor is, goalies are just a big roulette wheel. Igor could have a terrible game and let in 4. We just don't know. He is one of the better goalies in the NHL, if not the best. So you're expecting it to be a lower scoring game, but I think there's a lot on both sides here. I think, all 3 Wild lines are in play, and definitely the top 6 of the Rangers.
Yeah. It's the top line for Minnesota that I want to start with. And it's because they're coming in with such good leverage in our top stacks tool. I see them double digits top stacks tool coming in at about 4% ownership. So we have them with very good leverage here tonight. They've just been flat out one of the best lines pretty much all season long in the league. Obviously the concern here is facing Igor Shesterkin. He's the best goalie in I'm not gonna say he's the best goalie. For me, he's the top two or three.
He just
I kind of just did. Like he's in the the small
he's in the
handful.
conversation.
Yeah, he's in the small handful of 3 or 4 goalies. And facing that any given night is really, really tough. But the reason I like Minnesota one particularly here, one reason is that they've been using Zibanejad against opposing top lines, and this Zibanejad line has not been good. 45% shot share since Christmas. Like they weren't good leading up to Christmas, and they haven't been good since Christmas.
Like it's surprising how much, not like how much, but like Capo Caco up there makes a big difference compared to the other crap they've been putting up there.
It does. And I think, losing him really does make a difference on that line, especially defensively. So if you're going to have a defensively weaker line going up against the Minnesota top line that's been seemingly scoring at will almost all season long, in one of the better leverage spots on the slate, I do like Minnesota 1 a lot here tonight. Minnesota 2, like they have really good numbers. They're not even coming in super high owned. I thought they would be a lot higher owned than this. I was worried this would be one of those Calgary 2 situations where it's like 3% top stack and like 12% owned. That's not the case here. We have them 3% top stack coming under 6% ownership. Boldy and Fiala have been excellent together. Well over 50% shot share and scoring chances. I think on the last show, Jake talked about my affinity for Frederick Gaudreau. And I don't think he's a wonderful player, but I think he's a good two-way transition center that can facilitate for scoring wingers. And that's exactly what they need. So
he's a Walmart Robert Thomas.
I kind of like that. I think I kind of like that. I can get along with that. That doesn't really speak too highly of Robert Thomas either. Anyways. So I do like Minnesota 2. I think, two-manning or three-manning anything out of there to get up to your expensive Colorados or expensive Washingtons or whatever. I think that's just fine. But it is Minnesota 1. I think it's a better matchup. On the flip side, like I said, Rangers 1 just haven't been great. I think it's back to the Rangers second line for me if I'm playing anything at 5-on-5. They have been a better line since Goodrow got there. High event, but good. At least they're above water by shot share, 53%. So, that Rangers second line is probably where I go on that side. But honestly, like you mentioned, the Wild aren't taking a lot of penalties, and the Rangers really need the power play to score. And missing Adam Fox, I think, is a pretty big deal. He's far and away their best puck mover on the blue line. And I like Trouba, but Trouba's not a great transition defenseman. He's can be good defensively. He's a good, he's can facilitate on the power play, but transitioning at 5-on-5, I don't think is his strength. Like, I think there's some concerns with the Rangers here. And when I look over at their ownership, we're not getting any deals here. 10% on the second line, 13% or 18%, on the second line, 17% on the top line. 1/3 of lineups are going to have Rangers 1 or 2 here. If you're only playing 1 to 3 lineups or something, I think this is a fade. On the blue line, obviously Jacob Trouba, right at the top of the list for defensemen I like in this game. On the flip side, there are some pretty cheap Minnesota defensemen. I know Jared Spurgeon's price has come up a bit to $4K. I still think that's perfectly playable. Brodin, 3,300, I think is also playable. Goligoski at 2,900, I think is playable. I think a lot of guys here are in play on the blue line. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Goligoski, Spurgeon, Brodin, Dumba, they're all in play. And the thing is, like, going back to Fiala Boldy, like, not only they're going to get Lafreniere, Rooney, Hunt, they're going to get, like, Nils Lundqvist and Libor Hayek. Like, what? Like, who? Like, some of these, like, Nils has a good, he's a prospect. Libor shouldn't even be in the NHL. Like, he's just been brutal. But again, like, I like K'Andre Miller as a puck mover. He's not Adam Fox, but he can at least move the puck. But he hasn't been doing anything this season. He gets a minute boost and he's min price. Maybe, but like, he just hasn't done much. Like, Braden Schneider looked pretty good yesterday. I call him Chris Pronger. He kind of reminds me of a young Chris Pronger, but a little early for that. But he's also min price. He had 2 power play assists yesterday. But for me, this is Minnesota defenseman outside of Trouba.
little early to say that he's going to be a Hall of Fame defenseman, you
Yeah,
think?
just a little bit.
Just a tad? Okay, well, all right. All right. If you are a resident of Louisiana or New York, sports betting is now live in your state. Welcome sports betting to your state with some fantastic bonus offers we have available here at Awesemo. Just click either link pinned in the live YouTube chat to browse all of our offers, including a bet $10, win $200 if any team scores a touchdown in either conference championship this Sunday with BetMGM, and a free NBA jersey if you bet $100 with Caesars Sportsbook. You can also take advantage of a $1,000 risk-free bet with BetMGM and up to a $1,500 match deposit bonus with Caesars in both Louisiana and New York as well. These offers are too good to pass up, so please check that pinned link and start betting. I imagine some our New York friends were really excited to get that news. I believe that was back in December. Early January, and the days just blur together now. And congrats to the residents of Louisiana as well. Be sure to click those links if you are a sports bettor. Get some free money if you can. All right, let's get to this next game. Colorado, 3.8 implied goal total. They're going into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.6 implied goal total. Nathan McKinnon broke his nose and got a concussion in the last game, so he's going to be out. They said he's going to be out for the next 3 games, so he's not going to be back for a little while yet. What that has done to the lines is move Mikko Rantanen to the center on the top line with Valeri Nichushkin on the wing. So it's Landeskog, Rantanen, Nichushkin, top line, and then the second line, Burakovsky, Kadri, and Alex Newhook. So your top line is 3 wingers. Your second line is double centers. And Sam Girard has moved to the top power play unit alongside Cale Makar. So Rantanen, Landeskog, Kadri, Makar, Girard, your top power plays unit. On the Chicago side, we didn't see who might take Taves' spot on the second line. That really hurts. I don't want to say that really hurts their second line, because I think somebody like Kirby Dach could move up and basically replace what Taves has done. It's just, if it's anybody other than Kirby Dach, we could be running into some problems of running Alex DeBrincat with a 4th line center. There's some really cheap players on the Chicago side, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Josh, what do you like in this? What do you like in this here?
I'll start with the Hawks, just because I'm kind of confused at how they're going to match. Like, maybe it's Doc, Kurashev, DeBrincat, which would mean they're probably going to see a fair bit of Rantanen, Nichushkin, Landeskog. But if they put like Borgstrom with DeBrincat, like, I still think, Doc, Kurashev, Kubalik will go out against the top comp. Regardless of what that is, I don't think Strome, Hagel, Kane are going to see the top line. And we've talked about ad nauseum how not great the Colorado second line is when Nichushkin isn't there. Now, I do like Alex Newhook. I just don't know how he's going to do defensively on the left wing with Kadri and Burakovsky. I can't imagine great. So another issue is the Chicago projected ownership right now, but like, I don't know how big of a deal it is because they're fully correlated on the power play. Strome's coming off a 4-point game. Hagelstrom Kane on DraftKings is 11-7 to full stack. Like that, like, I just don't even know what to say. Like, they've been good for the Hawks. They're super cheap. They're going to be highly owned, but if you're going to use them, like, there's plenty of expensive spots to differentiate yourself tonight. And it could even be like game stacking with the Colorado top line because there's no center on the top line. So I feel like a lot of people are going to go Kadri, Landeskog, Rantanen. I feel like you could just go Landeskog, Rantanen, Nichushkin and be completely different and find just like a one-off center somewhere. I don't know. I'm going to have to mess around with lineups, but I do really like both top lines.
Just to speak to that real quick, I did my lineups before we went on the show. Your boy here has a lot of one-off Rupe hints tonight.
The fiasco, the one-off. Yeah, so I mean, like people are just going to go Kadri, Landeskog, Rantanen. It's just going to be what it is. Like, Nichushkin's not some bum. Like, I remember you yelling from the rooftops when the Stars messed that up and he went back to Russia. So he's he's a good player. So I think, going 3-wing with that top line is a very interesting way to get different in GPPs. So both top lines are in play for me. I have to see lines to see who's going to match that top line, because I do also really want to play Alex DeBrincat at 4,600. That's another misprice as well. As you said, he's on pace for almost 50 goals, and he's 4,600, coming in around 5%. So I'm hoping he's on a line that avoids that top matchup, because if they get like Yost, Comfort, O'Connor, that's such a great matchup for DeBrincat, because that line is so bad defensively to give up so many chances against. So I'm kind of hoping they put like Doc Kurashev and, I don't know, Sam Lafferty together, and it leaves Borgstrom with DeBrincat and Kubalik, and they'll get really good depth matchups. So we have to wait and see on lines, and it's an 8:30 start, but like Chicago is cheap enough where you can mix and match into favorable matchups.
Yeah, with Chicago, I'm not overly concerned. I am playing some Chicago here tonight. I'm not overly concerned with 3-man stacking the perfect 5-on-5 line here. Yeah. It's a lot of, Strome, Kane, DeBrincat, Kane, DeBrincat, Jones, Strome, DeBrincat, Jones. Those are the kind of stacks I'm going with here. I will be stacking across the top 2 lines with Chicago, just because, one, we don't know what the lines are going to be. 2, I don't think, even if we knew the lines with no Jonathan Toews, I'm not that convinced they would stick around that long in the game anyway. So if you're playing Chicago, you don't have to just stack an even strength line. I think you're just fine mixing and matching some guys from the top 6. That's how I'm approaching this game. On the Colorado side, I think it's worth mentioning the top line was still elite without Nathan McKinnon there. Landeskog and Rantanen this year without Nathan McKinnon on their line, 64 shot attempts per 60 minutes, 64% of the shot share, 32 scoring chances per 60 minutes. They're not quite like, 40 scoring chances or whatever with McKinnon, but still excellent. So
it's a big bump on the power play.
Yeah, and assuming they can generate roughly the same amount of shots without McKinnon there, there's a lot more shots up for grabs, and that's why Rantanen can probably put up a shot bonus here tonight or something like that. So as I said when I cut you off, I am playing a lot of 3-winger top line Colorado here tonight, because I don't think a lot of people are going to do it. I think there are some one-off centers that you can use here tonight. We'll talk about one in a game coming up. I mentioned him in Rope Hintz. I think there's one in this game. I think you can use Strome on the other side as a one-off center just fine. I even think Ryan Strome over in New York can be used as a one-off center. Now, don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. I think that's fine, because he's not the focal point on the power play. But if Panarin doesn't score at 5-on-5, it's probably going to be Strome. So I think he can get by with him as a one-off too, but it would be Dylan Strome I'd use as a one-off center. I do like the Colorado top line quite a bit. I agree with you. I think people are just going to stick in Kadri because they need that center spot. So it is a way to get a little bit different. I am sneaking in some second line Colorado stacks here, because there are expensive stacks, Minnesota, namely, that I want to stick in with them. So Colorado 1, I am focusing around them. I am going to sneak in a bit of Colorado 2, and I'm going to play some broken Chicago here as well. On the blue line, lots of value all over the place. Devin Toews down to 5K. I don't know why. Seth Jones down to 5,700. Again, I don't know why. Sam Girard is up on the top power play unit now for Colorado with Cale Makar, and he's at 3,600. On the Chicago side, Calvin DeHaan, 3,400. I think that's a bit expensive for somebody who's really just a shot blocker, but Connor Murphy, 3,300. Absolutely in play. I think there are like 5 or 6 defensemen you can comfortably use here, Josh. What do you think?
Yeah. McCabe, Jones, Murphy, DeHaan, Toews, Makar, Girard, all in play. Like, outside of Makar, who's 7,300, everyone else is too cheap. So pick the guy you like, plug him in.
I mean, is that kind of an argument for Makar then?
Yes. I feel like if you're going to go, Kadri, Landeskog, Rantanen, everyone's just going to go with Girard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get your Makar in to get different.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll check my exposures before I came on the show. I think I had like 10% Makar, 20% Toews, and 25% Girard or something like that. So it was definitely more Gerard and Taves. It was a pricing thing, but I did try to squeeze in some Makar. I think he's a very good play from the blue line tonight because there are so many different options. All right, we have partnered with Yahoo Fantasy this NHL season to bring you some great offers. Check out our exclusive limited time offer, which gets you 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. To qualify, you need to be new to Yahoo. Sign up. You need to be new to Yahoo. Sorry. Sign up for your account via the link below. Deposit and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you've played in your first paid contest. We will reach out via email with your coupon. If you'd like to speed up the process of getting access, email support@awesemo.com and we'll get you set up right away. You can also claim a free $10 of site credit by clicking the link in the video description below, and that can be used to enter any Yahoo contest, including tonight's $5,000 NHL Baller and the NFL $500,000 Sunday Baller coming up this weekend. Make sure to use our DFS tools and projections designed specifically for Yahoo to give yourself the best shot at winning big. All right, we got plenty of time to get through these final two games. We have Washington with a 2.8 implied goal total. We have Dallas with a 2.8 implied goal total. There's some wonky stuff around the Dallas news today. John Klingberg looks like he's going to be back for the Stars. He missed their last game, I believe. It looked like Jacob Peterson was going to miss this game, but apparently it was a false positive on his COVID test. So he's back. But Radek Faksa is also back, and he was skating on the third line in practice yesterday when Jacob Peterson was out with his false positive COVID test. So I don't think we're going to see any changes to the Dallas top six. What the Dallas third line looks like is up in the air, and that's kind of important because Dallas tends to use their bottom six against opposing top competition. I don't think it makes a big difference whether it's Peterson or Faksa on that third line. And in fact, I brought it up in our chat before that Radek Faksa's defensive impacts have just fallen off the map this year. I'm not sure it's the same checking line it's been in recent seasons. What do you like out of this game, Josh?
Speaking of falling off the map, we're trying to get through an NHL strategy show here, and Jake is spamming pictures of him in the woods, with drinking White Claws.
Yeah. I see a notification on Discord and see if I missed something. And it's Jake out in the woods getting drunk.
Yeah. Come on, Jake. Please wait until 3 p.m. Eastern. You have responsibilities, man. Anyway, I think this is a good night for Dallas 1. And there are some people in our Discord who really dislike the Stars top line for whatever reason. But, they're an elite line. Sorry. Maybe Papa Joe Pavelski's over the hill on the tail end of his career, but Jason Robertson, and I've said it on Twitter, and some people got really mad about it for some reason. I think he's the most underrated young star in the league. He doesn't get the recognition he deserves. He's an excellent young player. So, and it doesn't matter if the third line, if it's Peterson or Faksa going out against Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, whatever. If it's going to free up Hintz, Pavelski, Robertson against, Hagelin, Dowd, Hathaway, which is okay. The Capitals are pretty good defensively up and down, but give me Dallas 1. They're an elite line. They're coming in around 9% right now. It's not a huge total, but when Dallas generally doesn't have huge totals just because they don't have much after that top line. Tyler Seguin is still the man. He gets there on the power play. Friends, where Dallas 1 is involved. So I really like Dallas 1 here tonight. On the flip side, I also like Washington 1, especially if it's Faksa on that third line. He's just not the player he was a few years ago. Radulov is at the tail end of whatever it is he's been doing, going back and forth from Russia to Canada to Dallas. He's been around the world, but the thing is, again, Washington, similar to the Rangers, they're better than the Rangers 5-5, but they're still not great. I don't know. Luckily, they're fully correlated, so I do really like both top lines in this game. I prefer Dallas 1. You want to play Washington 1, Ovechkin tonight. I think, he may go a little bit overlooked compared to normal, how Ovechkin's normally owned just because of Colorado, Pittsburgh, et cetera, et cetera. So how often can you get a Ovechkin under 20% on a short slate? I probably couldn't count the times on both my hands. It's probably just on one hand. So I think, Washington won, Dallas won for me. You want to leave off Tom Wilson, add in Nick Backstrom. I think that is perfectly fine as well.
Yeah, the Washington top line is one of the top projected lines on the entire slate. We had them coming in for 35.1 points by our lineup builder. If you look at the top line for Colorado, they're at 38.6 points. Minnesota Wild 30.7, so that's less. The Pittsburgh Penguins 38.8, that's more. Like, the top lines are still within about 10% of them. And if you look at the Washington ownership, 11% by our top stacks tool, like, that seems appealing to me. It's just, I have a hard time full stacking them for this reason. It's like the power play hasn't really been great. Now, I expect Nicholas Backstrom to improve things as we move along. But the power play really just hasn't been great this year. Ovechkin's really done a lot of his work at 5-on-5, which is something that doesn't really happen, at least not in the last few years, for Ovechkin. So I'm really having a tough time with this game because this isn't really, it's not a good power play spot for Washington. But they're still coming in with reasonable ownership. So I think what I'm going to do here is I think I'm going to be playing some one-off Ovechkin here tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be full stacking the line. Absolutely no problems full stacking them if you want to. I think it's the second line where I would probably go. Assuming that they get the Ben Gurianov-Sagan matchup. Like, Backstrom and Sheary, I talked about it on the last show. They've typically been pretty good together. And so far this year, I mean, Backstrom's only played, I don't know, he only came back after Christmas, so it hasn't been that long. But 60% shot share in their time together, 61% of the scoring chances. Like, I think Washington 2 is one of those fillers I'm going to be sticking in with my more expensive lines. So maybe some one-off Ovechkin, a little bit of Washington 2. On the Dallas side, I agree with you. I do like the Dallas top line. I don't know if I'm going to be full stacking them here, but I do have a lot of Hintz, Robertson, Heiskanen, Hintz, Robertson, Lindell, things like that. I think I want to get some defensemen in this game because they're so cheap, especially Heiskanen coming in all the way down at 4,500. So yeah, let's talk about those defensemen. Heiskanen, 4,500. I really do like him a lot here today. John Carlson jumped back up to 6K. That feels probably right for his price, but it also feels tough to play if you're playing like Kuznetsov and Ovechkin here tonight. What are you doing with defensemen?
I don't know. Carlson's having one of those weird seasons where I'm starting to throw him in the category of Keith Yandel.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Like, last season, he was ridiculous on the power play. This season, maybe injury. I don't know. I don't like to conjecture with players or what's going on in their lives, this and that, but he's kind of fallen off pretty heavily this year. So I don't know. I'd much rather play Heiskanen at 4,500, Klingberg at 4,400 if he's in. Esa Lindell's fine under 4K, but like, how often can you get Miro at 4,500? He's been up in the high sixes a point. So like, I think this is a Miro game for me. Yeah,
one thing I do a lot with my goalies is correlate with at least one defenseman, and a lot of my lineups tonight are Holtby plus Heiskanen. And I don't even like playing Holtby, and I don't like playing goalies against Washington. But I do have a fair bit of Holtby plus Heiskanen here tonight. I see another super chat. This one from Abel Ramos. Thank you very much for your super chat, your $2 super chat. Says Slim and Josh, what does MME and high event mean? I think that's probably a good thing to go through because we do get new viewers, especially in the second half of the season. MME is mass multi-entry. Now, depending who you talk to, some people will say it's only 150 lineups. I considered anything 20 max and above. 20 max, some contests are like 60 max. You'll see, 80 or 90 depending on some buy-in, but I consider anything 20 above to be mass multi-entry. Some people consider just 150 entries, but when you hear MME, typically think lots and lots of lineups. High event, I don't know what your cutoff is. For high event, we mean a lot of shots back and forth. My cutoff is like 60 shot attempts per 60 minutes and 60 shot attempts against per 60 minutes. So anything around 120 shot attempts per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 is what I would consider high event. And the reason why you look for high event is because on DraftKings, shots and blocks leads to bonuses. The more shots you take, the more shots and blocks there are going to be. So that's why looking for high event players can be important. Anything I missed there?
Not really. Just to add on, I am around the same numbers with you for high event. I also look at high danger chances. I consider usually anything like 13, 12, 13 and up, either way, to be fairly high event. Obviously, the bigger the number, the higher the event it is.
Yep. All right. That's a pretty good point about high danger as well, to look at something a little bit different. We have the Awesemo Hall of Fame here at Awesemo.com, where we like to celebrate our winners. If you want to get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, this is how you can do it. You download the Awesemo avatar from awesemo.com/avatar. You place in the top 3 of a contest with at least 5,000 contestants, and then you tweet those wins to the Awesemo Hoff account. You saw a winner earlier today. Soul Cube took down that 444 in DraftKings. So I don't know if there was 5,000 contestants in the 444. I don't play over on FanDuel, but if there is, I hope he sent that into the Awesemo Hoff account. You'll see D Lenny 24 taking down that 100K in NBA. I see Zanye taking down that split NFL of first NFL showdown. See 8 Game taking down that NBA solo entry. And then you see and we start to get into some NHL stuff. Jimmy V, our buddy Jimmy V, he took down that nickel MME over on FanDuel not that long ago. See Melissa, her first takedown and the 3 max over in NHL. There's Buffalo War Pigs. I brought up our buddy Sammy Telesco a little bit earlier. $500 first place with Dallas, oddly enough, the team that we just talked about. So you can get there with the Dallas Stars. It can be done. Congrats to all the winners. If you want to get in the Awesemo Hall of Fame, send in your screenshots to the Awesemo Hoff account. Just make sure you have the Awesemo avatar and make sure you place in the top 3. And there's at least 5,000 other contestants. We have some shows coming up after us as well. We have the NFL Prize Pick Show coming up at 4 o'clock Eastern with Aton and EMAC. And then your NBA Double Dose starts at 4:45 Eastern. So if you're playing NFL this weekend or NBA, we have you covered. All right, let's get to this last game. Boston 3.9 implied goal total. Arizona 2.1 implied goal total. Matt Grzelcyk is a game time decision here for Boston. We're just not going to get any clarity until warm-up. So whether you want to play him or not, like, it's completely up to you guys. I am not playing at 4,200 Matt Grzelcyk, who has a game time decision tag. If he burns me, he burns me. All right, what do you think about this game?
I mean, like, I really like Boston 1 here tonight. I don't know how the Coyotes are going to match up. Not that it matters from a Boston perspective. It matters from a Coyotes perspective, because I kind of want to, like, if you want to get a little bit different, you kind of want to have the Coyotes line, who's probably going to see Boston 2, just because they have not been super great defensively. And maybe that's Kessel. Maybe. I'm just not 100% sure how the Coyotes are going to match up at home. Like, none of these lines are like, yep, let's just go shut down Bergeron.
Yeah, typically they've used Kessel and Larson in the shutdown role. I mean, seeing Phil Kessel in a shutdown role blows my mind, but it's kind of worked a little bit, I guess.
So I don't know. Maybe have some Boyd, Keller, Schmaltz going up against Boston too. If that's the matchup, that's fine, I guess. But like, the price, like, Keller 4,700 is more expensive than the Brinkat tonight. Like, I just can't wrap my head around not playing. I'd much rather play DeBrincat over Clayton Keller. So, like, this is a Boston game for me. Boston power play game for me. I think, going old school Boston 1 is an interesting way to get different, especially if you're fading Colorado, because they're very expensive, or Pittsburgh, very expensive. So you can go old school Boston 1. You can go, Taylor Hall instead of Craig Smith, or you could just full stack Boston 1. It's a very good 5-on-5 matchup. It's a very good power play matchup. So I don't know. I might just go like Bergeron, Marchand, McAvoy. McAvoy is $2,100 cheaper than Pasta, so that 3-man frees up a little bit there. So, you can go to Boston too, Hall, Pasternak. I think that's fine as well. But I think, in this matchup, we talk about how, like, when the Penguins are in really good power play spots, you really want, the Crosbys in the world, or, like Edmonton is in really good power play spots. You want, McDavid or Draisaitl. It feels like you need at least one of Bergeron and Marchand if you're going to stack the Bruins tonight. So I think, Boston one or Boston power play with one of those big boys makes some sense, or at least David Pastrnak in there. So I think, yeah, it's quite a day. I like not having a golf sweat today is confusing. It's the third round. I thought it was Saturday until, we got on the show, but I think Boston power play, Boston one, maybe some Boston two is fine. On the Coyote side, Arizona two, I guess, if they're going to see Boston two, but like that's only to get contrarian if you want to, get contrarian and fade the Hawks tonight, I think, because they're very similar in price.
Yeah, I don't mind Arizona too. They're in that Minnesota two range that you mentioned. I do kind of like them here. I wouldn't play them in a single entry, I don't think, but in my 20 max, they're going to be in consideration, and definitely they would be in 150 as well. They're going to get the second line matchup from Boston, and Boston's second line has been good, 54% shot share, but that's not a world beater. That can be beaten, right? So I do like Arizona too a little bit here tonight. It is Boston power play for me. David Pastrnak, I think, might be my highest owned player tonight, just because I do want to get him into the depth Arizona defense matchups, but I also want to get a big piece of that Boston power play. So the one concern I will say about Boston one, we mentioned it in our Discord, is that against bad teams, sometimes Marchand and Bergeron don't play 20 or 21 minutes. You'll see them play 15, 16 minutes. Now, they can still get there in 15 or 16 minutes, but, if you're going to give me 18 minutes of Boston 2 against 16 minutes of Boston 1, like, I'm going to play Boston 2. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. So Boston 2 is fine. I think Boston 3 is even in play here. They've been playing very well since they've been put together, the Steen, Coyle, DeBrusque line. So I do have some one off DeBrusque here tonight as well. All right. Any defenseman out of this game? Go with the Gostisbehere is pretty cheap. That's the only guy that really stuck out. Gostisbehere and Carlo, I think.
Yeah, if you're not correlating with McAvoy, Carlo for sure. Gostisbehere, I think, is fine at 4,300. That's about it. Like Chikrin, third pair, not top power play, 5,400. Like, get him out of Arizona for the love of God.
Yeah, they're not even showcasing the guy. What's going on here? Yeah, all right, that'll wrap it up for us. As I said, the NFL Prize Picks show will start here in about an hour. I'm going to ask you for your hat trick picks and your goalies. My favorite, like I said, I am playing some Braden Holtby tonight. I know that is a little bit worrisome, but I am playing some Holtby. I am playing some Fleury as well. My hat trick pick is Andre Burakovsky. Who you got?
Igor Shesterkin. Even like if you're on Narrative Street, Cam Talbot is in play too. Like, I think he's in play anyway. If the Rangers or if the Wild don't take too many penalties, because the Rangers are 5-on-5. Fleury is the spicy meatball play of the day. And my hat trick pick is gonna be Alex DeBrincat.
All right, there you go. Alex DeBrincat, Andre Burakovsky, both from the same game, both your hat trick picks for tonight. We will be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, with your NHL strategy show. So for producer Mike, for Mr. Harris, Michael Clifford saying we'll see you in about 20 hours, folks.
That's all, folks.